Being an avid fan of Mario Golf Super Rush, I went on a hunt to see if I could find any other half-decent golf games, and, well, I'm still looking. However, my brain suddenly reminded me one day that Kirby's Dream Course exists, and Kirby in the Forgotten Land just came out, so how about we take a look at that? Now, I'm impartial to the Kirby series as a whole. Most of the games are at least fine, if a little boring, though HAL Laboratory has never shied away from the odd spin-off title, as Kirby has had several extra romps through pinball games, racing, and the topic of this video, golf. Kirby's Dream Course is an isometric mini-golf puzzler that has you play through several courses, each containing 8 holes. These holes are filled with various different enemies, and so the goal in each individual hole is to defeat all but one of these enemies, as the last remaining enemy will form a hole in the ground that you have to putt or lob Kirby into. This deceptively simple concept is expanded upon really well in each new course you play through. I was initially very afraid of the game starting off strong, then quickly falling off just because of how other SNES games tend to have burnt me, but for the most part the game has a very consistently good course design. There is the odd hole or two that aren't good, but for the most part these holes are very unintrusive, unless if it's that one stupid freaking hole where you gotta bounce Kirby up some stairs. That one was incredibly annoying. Those holes also account for a majority of the game's difficulty, as again, most of the other ones are simple enough that you should be able to clear them on your first try. However, you do have to worry about how many strokes you take, as each of these tomatoes acts as one stroke. We'll run out of tomatoes and you lose a life, lose both of your lives, and that's a game over. I do understand the idea behind the tomatoes, but the life system is a little bit annoying. For this and most other Switch Online titles, I find myself often using the rewind feature, and if you happen to play Kirby's Dream Course on SNES Online, then I recommend you do so as well. Personally, I just don't find much enjoyment in repeating the same exact holes all over again just to get back to the point where I lost all of my lives. And even then, using rewinds definitely didn't take away from my experience, as each time I sunk Kirby into a hole, it was incredibly satisfying. Kirby's movement in the game is something that does take some getting used to though. Given Kirby's squishy body, he doesn't exactly bounce around like a regular golf ball. In fact, he bounces quite a bit, and a bit annoyingly so. It's most evident when you have to start doing lob shots, and in later stages it can get kind of out of control. Thankfully, there is something to combat this, and it's easily the most unique feature in the game. Much like any traditional Kirby platformer, Dream Course has a handful of Kirby copy abilities to use in various courses, which you can activate with the B button. The way you obtain them is simply by hitting the enemies that would usually hold the copy abilities in the regular Kirby games, so like the Mr. Frosty or whatever his name is, he'll give you the Ice ability, for example. The most useful ones for me were Ice, Stone, Needle, and UFO, but there's also a couple of other fun ones. I think their implementation works really well, though all of them kinda break the rules of golf. They're really fun to use. Other than Wheel, any of the stages that I had to use Wheel in just sucked. There's a ton of creative uses for each ability, and they all add a lot to the core charm of the game. Twister is probably my second favorite, since if you're lucky, it can act as a free putt. I'm honestly a bit surprised at just how well all of the abilities mixed into this weird little mini-golf game. You'd think at some point something would go wrong with the game, but I think the real crime is how short the game is. It took me about 2.5 hours to beat the game, and while I am glad it didn't end off terribly, I do wish it had some extra content or at least another mode or two. I know there's a multiplayer mode in the game, but I don't exactly know anyone who's out there clamoring to play Kirby's Dream Course multiplayer in 2022. Nonetheless, I highly recommend you check out Kirby's Dream Course if you're a fan of Kirby or if you're a golf game junkie. It starts off as a fairly regular mini-golf game, but progressively throws in more mechanics and obstacles and ends up making a really fun experience overall. Honestly, I'd go as far as to put it in my top 10 SNES games. That's not to say you should expect anything mind-blowing out of Kirby's Dream Course, but it's a very unique experience from any other golf game I've ever played, and it's certainly worth a look for that alone. And I think something that really hurts me is how Kirby and the Canvas Curse got a follow-up on the Wii U, but Kirby's Dream Course just gets left in the dust. Like, there's a lot you could add to a Kirby's Dream Course successor, or some kind of a remake or something, and you would make a lot of people very happy if you made a Kirby's Dream Course successor, HAL Laboratory, and it's not just me. I hope. But in the meantime, I'm Wyrlwind, thank you for watching, consider subscribing and liking the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Later!